Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the May 5th, 2021 meeting of the Hyde Park Planning Board. Before I begin, let me make sure that everyone is alone. I'm going to call on the members individually. Ms. Wasser?
I am alone.
Mr. Pickett?
I am alone.
Mr. Oliver?
Alone.
And Vice Chair Dexter?
I'm alone.
Just for the record, we are down two of our members tonight. Ann Weiser and Diane DiNapoli will not be joining us. I also want to note that this meeting is being conducted under the auspices of Governor Andrew Cuomo's Executive Order 202.1, last extended as 202.101, which means we've been a little over a year in this virtual meetings by Zoom. So we appreciate that the town board has given us the resources to conduct this virtually. Now, please join me as we pledge allegiance to the American flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. The first item on the agenda is a new public hearing. This would be a joint public hearing both for Bellefield Wastewater Treatment Facility lot line alteration, which is a minor subdivision under our code, as well as for an expansion of the wastewater treatment facility. This has been workshopped as well as discussed, but I'm just going to give a brief sort of overview. The applicants are seeking approval to basically build out the entire wastewater treatment facility. What this does is, for those who live around us and are on Route 9 often, you'll notice that Hudson Heritage, the former psychiatric center, is proceeding apace with lots of sorts of different buildings going on, roadways, et cetera. Because the city and town of Poughkeepsie have a central sewer system, Hyde Park does not. So what they currently have on this site at Bellefield is a wastewater treatment facility that would only serve the approved hotel, which is about to go vertical, I believe. But because there's not a central sewer system that's already operable and big enough, each time that the applicants would find a new tenant, they would be required to come back for review by the planning board, as well as a redo to the SPDES permit, the State Water Pollution Discharge Elimination System permit that DEC gives. So by building it out in advance, or at least having the approvals to build it out, they'd be able to continue at a pace. In other words, not having to go through a cumbersome, lengthy time in which to amend the permits and come to the planning board for review. So that noted, may I get a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved, Stephanie Wasser.
Second, Ann Dexter.
Thank you. All those in favor, please raise your hand and signify by saying aye.
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 I see 5 hands. The motion carries unanimously. Mr. Mudro, let me turn it over to you.
Yes, thank you very much. And that was a very good description of what's going on. Is there a way to me to share my screen? Can I do that?
You may share, yes.
Okay, thank you. Everybody can see that?
Yes.
Okay, so as Michael was saying, the full plant development for the wastewater treatment plant would be 3 trains, 1, 2, 3. We currently have approved just this first one here going in. The headworks are already in place out there. So the idea is to get the full development approved from a site plan, and then as each of these modulars advance, we go in for a building permit for each MBR. So each of these buildings here is where the sewer is actually treated, aeration tanks here, screening building here, and EQ, but there's some technical stuff there. This, what we're also showing here in the full build out is a belt press building to manage the sludge. And we've talked about that. Also, what we've done here is we moved the lab building, which was originally designed to go here up to here. So in doing that, and to accommodate the necessary turning radiuses for the equipment to get in and out, we've had to increase the lot area, which was originally here up to here. And we're even planning for future expansion, well down the road, to actually flip these tanks here and put them here to increase the capacity if needed. But we didn't want to keep coming back and amending the lot. So this lot we're comfortable with. Again, it was originally here and now it's going to here. This outfall pipe is installed. There is an underdrain which manages groundwater that's installed. That goes through this easement here. We widened that easement to accommodate additional underdrains as we develop out. But essentially, again, very similar to what we originally had approved. We're just approving the whole thing so we don't have to keep coming back from a site plan standpoint. Thank you.
And Mr. Boudreau, do you want to explain about why we're doing the lot line alteration while we have it, since this is the first time that some of the members of the public might be hearing it?
Yeah, I could pull up the subdivision map. See if I can do it.
Thank you. Oh, while we're waiting, I had a question, not a question from me, but to me, about what an MBR is, and that's membrane bioreactor, for those in the audience who might be curious. This is a different kind of, again, this is actually a more modern technology, I believe is the right way to call it, so that quality effluent, meaning the liquid, is actually pulled through a membrane, and it sort of beats the old-fashioned filtration and sedimentation kind of process that's normally used. So again, this is a more efficient and more advanced kind of way to treat wastewater. I hope that's the right layman's way to explain that, Pete Sotero. You can
That
correct
was
me.
awesome, Michael, because you went through the other thing about, you know, the belt press and the cakes and all that stuff. So you're becoming a real sewage treatment expert.
Thank you.
We need somebody, so we may need to talk about a job for you.
You nailed it. Here's the original approved lot. Can everybody, I'll zoom in more, which is lot 3 from the larger Bellefield lot. You know what, let me back up so everybody knows. So here's Bellefield. The entire area here right now is 334.45 acres. So here it is right here, the whole thing. That's just self-storage right there. Popping down. This is the hotel lot, which is lot 2. And then the wastewater treatment plant, TR Sewer Works, is lot 3. The original size is shown here on a dashed line. And we grew it here to accommodate future expansion and moving the lab building, which is more efficient. So we moved it to the east. And by doing that, we had to grade the pad slightly different, and we kept that grading with, you know, fully within the lot, so we wouldn't have to get grading easements to lot 1. That's really it.
Thank you. I just wanted to, in case anyone tuned in for this tonight, to make sure that they understood that there were 2 aspects of the public hearing. So as always, let me start with,
Okay.
Yes.
Very good. Yeah.
anything else, Larry?
Yeah, well, this is the detail of it right here. Oops. There you go. There's the detail. Okay.
Thank you. As always, we'll start with our consultants. Mr. Sotero, comments?
Well, our prior comments were addressed. I've been copying the Michael and some other town officials on the one remaining issue. Was we brought up a concern about the underdrain and the potential for if the tanks ever did leak, is there any safeguards for any discharge into the Marici Kill? So Larry I've been corresponding with Larry in the county health department, and Larry has been keeping me in the loop with any discussions on the health department, which I'll in turn keep the town informed, but we'll work through that. One option is to possibly have in their They're monitoring, there's gonna have to be daily monitoring of the facility. So maybe they can work into the monitoring plan for the facility once every couple weeks or something like that, that somebody can go and check the outlet to make sure that there's not any kind of a sewage discharge from there. But we'll work through that. We'll keep the town informed.
Thank you. I want to go back and just because I had not fully realized this, but the under drain was actually put in because there was so much groundwater that the tanks have a certain buoyancy.
Right.
So that's why it was there. This isn't actually always normal, but in this situation, there was more water in the ground than what they anticipated. And that was actually Pete's call to ask what would happen if something leaked and then went through the under drain where normally just water goes to do a direct outflow to Marici Kill. I can also say that if there were one, even say within a 2-week monitoring process, if it was a substantial one, I believe that DEC and Department of Health would catch it because they pretty much monitor things that go into the Hudson River pretty closely. But that noted, this is still a great idea. So thank you, Pete, for that catch. Anything else you want to add?
No, Michael.
Bonnie is not here tonight, but I believe we don't really have anything from her tonight either. So Ms. Moss, any comments?
Yes, I'd just like to mention that, okay. I'd just like to mention that the flow that has been identified and is being permitted through other agencies has been estimated by the applicant. The planning board is not at this time approving any of those uses. That will come at a later date.
Right.
And I just wanted to make that clear that this is not a pre-approval for any other type of use. It's some way for the applicant to have an estimate and then to proceed with finding tenants.
Oh, thank you. Bonnie is here. In my grid, I can't quite see everything. I just realized, Bonnie, you're not going to be here for Thursday's meeting. I apologize, tomorrow.
No worries.
Thank you,
I'm gonna
Tad.
stop sharing. Yeah.
That's been put into the record. Ms. Franson, comments there.
So, as per our previous discussions and workshop, this is really getting down to the engineering details. I may have a few minor comments, but it's really engineering and just ensuring that all the other agencies have either provided input or that any approvals are conditioned on getting responses back and incorporating any changes that are required. So that's it for me.
Great. That being Ms. Polidoro, any comments?
I do have a question. This is maybe not the first time, but I guess it's the first time it's clicked that you are going to be requesting separate building permits at different times for the MBRs. Do those require COs?
Yes.
So I'm just wondering if those should be shown as little mini phases on the plan so that there's no problem closing them out when you go to do that. So you should identify all the grading and work that's going to happen with phase 1. And then phase 2 and 3 might just be the individual permits for those 2 tanks.
Right. We show the grading for the whole pad. Actually, we showed it on the first approval. We graded the whole pad out.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, we could show phase 1, 2, and 3, sure.
Well, the other option, Larry, would be that you would have to, so remember you have a year to start substantial and 2 years to complete. So if you were doing it in phases, but didn't know what the phases were necessarily, I think Victoria's suggestion is better, but you could just keep renewing that approval pending completion of the construction. It's probably easier to phase it than it is to keep reminding yourself, I've got to get an extension.
Okay.
So that Victoria, that's a sound idea. Thank you.
Because
anything else?
The year and the 2 years based on the phase.
No, if you phase it, correct me if I'm wrong, Ms. Moss, but if it's phased, then it doesn't have to be started within a year and completed within 2 years. I don't believe we even ask you to show dates of phases. It just means they can be approved into the future. Is that how I read that,
Probably
Tad?
write the resolution like that.
Right. Well, let me make a note.
Yes, that's going to be a complicated resolution for Victoria. Any other items, consultants?
Just
No.
the other item is that we're still waiting to hear back from county planning.
Right, we can't close the public hearing tonight because this was sent over to county planning, which has a few more days in which to respond according to their required timeline. Has there been movement on the easement to expand the area for the easement for any future under drains, et cetera?
Yeah, we did. We made it 30 feet.
Thank you. Okay, let me start with my colleagues. Ms. Wasser, comments? Anything additional from before?
No, I think I made comments in previous workshop and I don't have any additional. Thank you.
Mr. Pickett, any more comments?
No additional comments. Thank you.
Mr. Oliver,
No additional comments at this time, thanks.
Vice Chair Dexter?
I guess my only comment is I really did like Victoria's suggestion, because once everything starts moving, being able to compartmentalize everything into neat little packages it's a lot of work up front, but I think it'll pay off down the road.
I agree. Before I ask if there's any public comment, which I don't believe anybody signed up for this, but I had a question. We received some documentation from Chazen, but it involved a SHPO, or State Historic Preservation Office, Section 106 review. I wasn't clear. Is this, Larry, on just this portion that they're looking at, or is this on the whole concept plan that's about to be submitted? The whole concept plan?
Yes, yes.
That's what I figured, because they asked for elevations and impacts to visual impacts. I'm like, it's not really above ground. So that's why I was,
Yeah, no, we already had the no effect on.
that's what I thought. Okay.
Right.
So this is sort of pre-work for the new concept plan.
Yes, correct.
Is there anyone present who would like to speak about this application? If so, please just unmute yourself. There being none and there being no additional comments, I agree. We were prepared actually to close this and take action at the next meeting, but we're required, as you know, to wait for county planning to respond after the 30 days that they received under 239M. We had not received anything yet. So I agree with Bonnie. This looks like it's going to be basically technical stuff that's left, and the conditions will involve permitting from various agencies. So may I have a motion to adjourn this to the May 19th meeting?
I'll make that motion. Ann Dexter.
Second, Stephanie Wasser.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Aye. I see 5 hands, so motion carries unanimously. Thanks, guys. We'll see you at the next
Great.
meeting.
Yep, thank you, everybody. Have a great night.
Next item on the agenda is a continued public hearing for Hudson Valley Hospice House. This project has been discussed numerous times, has been the subject for many public hearings. Again, we want to thank the applicants and their consultants for being responsive to both comments and requests from the planning board, our consultants, and from the neighbors who've taken a great amount of time in which to speak about this application. Make a motion to reopen the public hearing.
I'll make that motion, Chris Oliver.
I'll second the motion, Brent Pickett.
Thank you. All in favor, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries unanimously. So let me turn it over to the consultants on this one. Michelle, do you want to take the lead, or Jamie or Joe?
I will take the lead. Jamie Machado. So understanding that there may be a different group of people out there in the public sector, I'm doing a presentation from the last public hearing, and I might sound a little bit repetitive, but I'm just going to go through all the latest and greatest just to make sure that we covered everything, and that, you know, if there's any additional questions or concerns, we are aware of it. And up to this point, we've been addressing all the public concerns and questions, as well as the planning board. So I'm not sure if you have the point presentation available to put on screen.
I'm afraid we don't. Councilman Krupnik had to leave tonight. I apologize. There was a sort of tragedy, family tragedy, we'll call it. So that's why he and Ms. Weiser are not here.
So is it possible for me to share my screen? I mean, it's
Victoria-
up to you.
Yes, you
Otherwise,
can
I
share
could,
your screen. Yes.
okay. So I'm gonna try to do that right now.
And while he's doing that, all of the other applicants for tonight should also be prepared to share their screens.
So am I sharing my screen right now, or is there something I need to do?
You have to click the green share screen button.
Ah, here we go. Screen. Screen broadcast. All right. Do you guys see this?
Yes.
Okay, so this is what we presented the last time. And I'm just gonna, it's a point presentation. I'm just gonna go through each slide and point out the latest changes that we talked about the last time. There might be one or two extra items. And if I miss something, just let me know. The first screen is the front elevation, and we made some exterior changes that we pointed out the last time, which was not in the original presentation of the exterior elevations. And it's more prominent when I go to the next screen, but I will go back to that picture eventually. The site plan, starting from the entrance, addressing the concerns of the planning board and the public, we added a straight or sidewalk along Violet Avenue, otherwise known as 9G. Added a sidewalk down the entry driveway. There was a concern about the shape of that, so we straightened that out. We added a bench at the very entrance of Violet Avenue in the driveway. Added the sidewalk along Route 9G, going toward the building. There was a concern about adding, let's say, fencing or changing the fencing, the dimension of the fencing, the length of it, and also the height. Kept it at 6 feet. And there was also a concern about the color of the fence, which we changed as rosewood, which I'm showing right now, W104. At the bottom in the south, we added some, shifted some fence to protect the views of the neighboring houses from oncoming traffic at night with their headlights on and so forth. We talked about the oxygen system, which is at the rear of the building, which is what I'm showing you right now. The next screen, we addressed some concerns about some of the vegetation that we provided in our original design, and the main comment was to change out some plants, into trees. So along the entry, we had lilac, syringa, reticulate, and then we added some trees, which was not originally shown in our original landscape plan, but the lilac, syringa vulgaris. In addition to the landscaping, we originally had a different pole, and while we had a light engineer look at our plan and give some calculations throughout the site in addressing the dark skies requirements that is required here in Hyde Park, we decided to choose a different pole, which actually was better for the dark skies requirements, which is shown here. We added in a security light at the oxygen security area in the rear of the building, which is in this area that I'm showing you right now. And overall, the calculation ended up being quite well, and nothing spilled into the adjacent properties. And we could talk about that in case you guys need more information. The entrances, which the exterior changes that we made, originally we had some turret design and some window changes due to value engineering during the process as a parallel, working with the site planning. We constantly looked at our building to see how we could achieve a better look. And in the last meeting, we asked permission to review this. And this is the before image, where originally we had some turret silo features at the corner of the buildings. And we changed windows, which is now looking like this. So instead of having the turret silo, we decided to use pergolas at the top of the roof, which we think is a little bit more attractive and easier to build and more cost effective. Other small changes were windows throughout, but the big major one is at the entrance where we had this window replacing what we had before. So those are the major changes on the outside. These are different views of those same features of the building. This is what it looks like now. This is what it looked like before. And I believe that seemed to be satisfactory to everybody, including the public. This is what it looks like in the courtyard at the rear. And this is what it looks like now. And overall, that's basically what we changed over the period of the last month or so. There were other things that we were addressing. And I'm done with the presentation in case anyone has any comments or concerns from the last meeting.
Do you want to let Michelle pop in and update us on the well testing?
Yes, Michelle?
Okay. The well was drilled on April 14th, and they started the field test this past Monday, and it's stabilized at about 9-10 gallons a minute. It's continuing until it's a 72-hour test, so it's continuing, and then they'll measure the length of time for the recovery rate. The samples have been taken for the water quality.
Thank you. I also just want to add that in the interim, we also received plans that show a crosswalk for the employees to reach the waste enclosure. The crosswalk now has signs basically on each side that alert motorists that there may be people walking by as well, which at least satisfies, I think, my concerns. So, lady and gentlemen, would you like to add anything else before I turn it over to our consultants? Mr. Berger, any comments? Okay, let me start then with Mr. Sotero. Comments?
Sure, thank you. Liz isn't going to be here tonight, so there wasn't too many of her planning comments. I'm sorry. Most of them had been addressed. There's a few cleanup things on the light pole detail and the base as far as further noting about the painting of the black base, and also making sure that the height is labeled so that the base that the height of the base is taken into account to the overall mounting height. I think everything is there. It's just that the detail needs to be cleaned up a little bit. So one of my prior comments was about sheet flow in the parking lot and potential icing in the winter months. So Joe's office added several trench drains around the front of the building in strategic areas. That seems to be fine. It would be hard for them to put in a regular catch basin and a pipe because it gets deep, and his stormwater facilities that he's proposing out in the front are relatively shallow elevation. So that's fine. I had a question in regards to the roof leaders. There's a roof leader collection line in the back in the courtyard area. But it didn't seem like there was anything in the front. So Joe or Michelle, I'm not sure what you were thinking about for the front. Were they just going to discharge into the landscaped area, or what
Oh,
were your thoughts there?
The front will just discharge into the landscape areas because there's extensive landscaping in the front.
well,
And there's only a basement in that one portion in the back. So there can be landscaping, and so the roof leaders, except for maybe along the,
Okay,
there'll be a footing drain along the basement, but those all go into the ponds anyway.
yeah, I can add to that. In the front, they go toward the retaining area close to 9G, and then everything in the back goes toward the retaining area.
yeah, no, yeah, right. I understand. I just wasn't sure if there was a collection system in the front. I mean, you may want to consider some type of a splash block at the bottom, or a diversion, of something, just so that it doesn't create like an erosion issue right at, the discharge point. And I don't know, if Tad had any other thoughts? No? Okay, shaking your head on that. Okay, no problem. So, all right, so that's fine. And then Joe and Michelle had a technical meeting today with two of our engineers in regards to the the drainage and some of our technical comments. So what I've been told is that a lot of things have been resolved. They were going to update some of the calculations and resubmit them. So I thought that was the easiest way to handle it, rather than write down our comments. So we'll issue a quick memo on the meeting today, just to keep the planning board updated. The last thing that I had was, well, not the last thing, I'm sorry. Two more things. I wanted some notes put on the title sheet in the area where the notes are for the rock excavation in regards to the crusher. There are some notes on the erosion control plan in terms of providing a tanker, a water tanker there for dust control, because the crushing at times, depending on the weather, can get dusty. So I just like for some additional notes to be put on the title sheet to that effect, right where the rock excavation notes are. And then also we should probably set some times for the crushing. I don't remember what in the town code in regards to noise and construction, hours, but rock crushing can be, noisy. So I don't think we want it to be the normal construction hours that's in the town code, which, Tad, is at 7 o'clock to
7 a.m. to 9 p.m., I believe.
Yeah, so we don't want that. We don't want that for the rock crushing. So I don't know, maybe we can just, 9 to 4 or something like that. Does that sound like reasonable, Joe?
I think 4 might be a little bit early.
Maybe 9 to 5 gives them a full day of work. That gives them 8 hours solid.
I'm okay with that. It's up to, the planning board. I'd like for the planning board to weigh in if they're okay with that.
9 to 5 used to be when people were at work. Now people are at home sometimes all day too. But the important thing to remember is that if we restrict it too much, then that just lengthens out the time they have to take.
Yeah.
So I don't want to hear rock crushing at 7 a.m. either. And it really is a tedious sound. So I'm personally comfortable 9 to 5, and I'll make sure that every board member weighs in when I ask them for comments.
Is that 5 days a week or 7 days a week?
Oh yeah, we don't want weekends.
It would be 6 days a week because the town code doesn't allow construction on Sundays anyway.
Monday through Saturday.
But most of these places have to be able to work on Saturdays, especially when it gets close to the certain critical times if rain delays them. Or they would like to be able to work. I'm not saying they have to, but you never know what weather delays or equipment, will work Saturdays.
As I said earlier, if we confine it just to 5 days a week, it's going to take longer anyway. Myself, we'll wait to hear from the board. Thank you for saying that, Michelle.
And if the board wants, at that point, we could do Saturday a little later. You could do 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, and 10 to 5 on Saturday, maybe.
All right. So the only other thing I had really was there's that storm drain line on the northeast side that's very deep, and there's going to be quite a bit of rock in there. And there's a couple wells on that side that are within about 100 feet of where the storm line is going to be. And so, Joe, I'd just like for you to, I know we had a phone call one time with the county health department, and they didn't seem to have too much to offer in terms of whether they had any experience or any, concerns with, rock hammering and the vibration. I don't know if any of those wells, are shallow. I would expect that they are. And, I know that you worked on the Tractor Supply down in Wappingers, which our office was involved with. And there was, rock hammering there. They had adjacent wells, and, to my knowledge, there wasn't any issues there. But I'd just like to have a conversation again with the county health department, see if they have any input on that, and then we can just have a discussion, further on that. I had a project down in Fishkill where we had the same thing, where they were going to hammer rock within it was actually less, about 75 feet of wells. And down there, the health department engineer worked with the town and also the applicant's engineer to come up with a monitoring plan for the adjacent wells, obviously subject to agreement of the property owner. So why don't we see what the health department has to say, and then we can, take it from there. But I just, I at least want to, discuss it and see if we need, to do this monitoring or not.
I agree. It's worth a conversation, absolutely.
Thank you both. Thank you, Mr. Sotero.
That's all I had, Michael.
Ms. Moss, any comments?
The security light around the oxygen area, is that in order to be able to photograph anybody that enters the area? Is that why it's so bright?
No, it's for when they need to work on it at night. It's going to be motion. It's going to have a motion sensor on it.
Okay.
So if they have to work on it, and not so much at night, but let's say it's in the winter and 5 at night when it's dark, that they can work on it and have adequate light to be able to work.
They may need to fill the tank at odd hours.
Or if anything breaks.
So
Yeah, if I may, the security light adds a different direction, because some of the lights are coming from the poles along the drive, but the security light, because of the equipment there, creates shadows of the existing equipment that's going to be there. And so the security light just it's a filler. But that's part of the calculation that was carefully laid out. So this way we don't have hot spots, and it doesn't affect the neighbors when it's on, even when it's on, but most of the time it will be off. It's motion sensor, and they have full control of it in case of an emergency.
if I'm sure that if there is a glare problem off of the property, we've had a similar light, I can't remember where, that has caused issues. And the solution was, I think there was a prefabricated, like a little bevel thing. It didn't really change the light. It just kept the light a little bit down. So I would hope that if we do have problems, that you would be open to that type of remediation.
Yes, and also I'll double check with the lighting person as well.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tad. Ms. Polidoro, any comments?
No comments.
I'll go to the board. Mr. Pickett?
Yes, no, I'm very pleased with the work and the responses. With regards to the crushing, I think 9 to 5, 5 days a week, 10 to 5 on Saturdays would work. So I think with that, I'm ready to move on. Thank you.
Thank you, Brent. Ms. Wasser, comments?
I agree with his comments precisely. But I did have a quick question if the engineers have an answer, which is what do you anticipate the number of days of rock crushing to be in a project like this approximately? How many days might this go on or weeks?
Well, I don't have a good, I'd have to think about that. I don't have a good answer. I don't know, you know, Joe has one, you know, a lot of it depends on them crushing it and how small of a material that they want to make out of it. Such as if they, you know, and my guess here is they're going to use a lot of the material for the foundation backfill. So that means that they have to crush the rock down to a much finer diameter versus if you were going to use it for stone fill for like a drainage channel or something like that, they can be a bigger stone size. That means, you know, less crushing. So, you know, I'm not really answering, you know, your question. I just know, you know, I know one of the jobs that I worked on over at the former Lewis Country Farms, we crushed rock over there, and it was probably a good, you know, 2 weeks easily. 3 weeks.
I was
maybe.
looking for order of magnitude, not a precise answer. But I'm really pleased with how things have evolved, and I look forward to it going forward.
Thank you. Mr. Oliver?
I am also fine with the schedule for the rock crushing, and I like the way the building's coming along and hope to see things happen in the future. Thank you very much.
And Vice Chair Dexter?
I concur with my colleagues, and I would just, for Stephanie's question, there was a project just north of this, the SPCA, and you are talking weeks, not days.
Yeah.
It's some hard rock over there.
Yeah. And I will add that one of my neighbors decided to do some rock removal and only did it on Sundays, and it lasted an entire summer. And I can tell you that by August, we were all pulling our hair out saying, just do it for 2 weeks. Just do it for 2 weeks. Tad will remember, she's smiling because she lives near me. It was pretty loud throughout the entire neighborhood. And of course, we're on the river, so it carried across. But I don't anticipate that being an issue here.
I just think it's helpful for the neighbors to know what to expect, that it's not months either. So that was
Right,
where I was
right.
going with it.
Right. It also depends on your proximity. As you know, the closer you're in, the more you're going to hear it, the further away, the less. So in listening to my colleagues, it appears that we are going to restrict the hours for rock crushing to 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, and Saturday 10 to 5, which I hope seems reasonable. We'll hear from Ms. Hudak, I think, in a moment. Also, thank you for both agreeing to discuss this with Department of Health, because I believe that the only well that there might really be a problem with, due to the nature of the grade change or the grade, would be the one that's along the northeast side. That's what they'll be doing, the rock hammering for that stormwater drain. Mr. Machado, I think the building still looks gorgeous. You heard that last time, but this time we were able to see with the detail that Ms. Zerfas sent, I could see where the glass roofs are on those little turrets. It's going to allow a lot of sunshine in, which I think will be.
Yeah, quite a bit more light than before. That was
well, because the turret, it had to aim in this way. No matter where it is, it'll be coming in through the top. I took a note of it because I thought if I ever wanted to redo my house, I don't like skylights, but I would consider doing something like that because it looks more traditional in style than what a skylight does. So I thank you for that. Ms. Hudak, do you want to speak tonight? If so, you'll need to unmute yourself. Donna? There we go.
Hi. Yes, thank you again.
And Mr. Machado, I like the pergolas better than the silos. It looks really pretty. So, and I also wanted to say thank you for letting us, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was just thanking you. Thank you.
Yeah, no, it looks really nice. And thank you for letting us know about the wells, when the wells were being drilled. That was really helpful. And maybe you could let us know when the rock excavation begins or the rock crushing, just to have an idea for our calendars, because it's going to be noisy, I guess now.
I certainly believe the only problem there, Donna, is that once it's out of the planning board, I won't know that date. It really is up to the building department.
Oh,
So, no, but if Mr. Kaminsky, if you have an idea when that's going to happen, or Mr. Berger, if you could just give Cynthia or me a heads up, then we can pass that information along.
Sure.
Certainly, we'll certainly keep you appraised on our construction.
Perfect.
We'll let Tad and Peter know as we have to do for SWIPs anyway. So we'll have a weekly report going to the town. We'll include that in the weekly report.
Perfect.
oh, that
Thank
would
you.
be, yeah, thank you. And then just another question about the lights. What about the down lighting? Is that different than the pole? You know, it seems to be different than the pole lighting. So what's the down lighting that they talked
Actually,
about last?
are you talking about the poles themselves?
And I believe she means the oxygen tank lighting.
Yeah, there was some about
yes.
down lighting. Yeah.
I can answer that. The oxygen tank lighting will be in the back of the building on the retaining wall.
Mhm.
So where your house is, the retaining wall will probably block most of the security lighting.
Oh, good.
From knowing where your house is, it'll be more,
Mhm.
if it's seen, it'll be more maybe from the northeast properties or the southeast properties.
Oh, okay.
The Northeast might see some of it, that's all. But again, this is motion detected, and it's just when they need to repair or fill the tanks. In other words, it would very rarely be on.
Okay. Or when
That's
the deer
correct.
go by. When the
Let's
deer
hope
go
there's
by.
not deer running back there, but you're right. That can set it off too. You're right. You're correct.
It's going to be within the, probably pretty much restricted to the fence area. So there shouldn't be a lot of deer that can be close enough to set it off.
Yeah. Okay. That's all I have. Just want to thank you again for including us, and I really appreciate being feel like I'm part of the team. So
I was
thank you.
just going to say, I feel like we're going to lose part of the planning board when this is over. So thank you, Donna.
Thank you. Thank you.
So what I was going to do is recommend the rest of the material that we would be receiving is pretty technical stuff relating to the SWIP and Pete's discussion. So I was going to recommend that we close the public hearing tonight. That way we don't have to continue to have these sorts of meetings. And then Peter can let us know when we're ready to consider approval. If that sounds good. Any comments from the board? And Peter, you agree that we can close the public hearing now, right?
Oh, yeah. Yep.
I thought.
I have a question for you, Michael.
Yeah.
Is there a time limit once we do close the public hearing?
There is a great way to educate. We have 60 days in which to take action. I wrote that note to Mr. Berger today that we would need to take action before then. But I'll also note that as Ms. Polidoric will remind us, no doubt, we can extend that time as long as the applicant agrees with us if there's any reason to do so. But I think that 2 months is plenty enough time for them to resolve all the matters that are left. Don't you, Peter and Joe, Michelle?
Yeah, for conditional. Yes, I think so.
Oh, there'll still be conditions placed on this,
Yeah.
we know.
Right.
Yeah, we agree.
I think that we've gone far enough now that there's not going to be any major changes left. If there are anything minor, it's going to be field changes, I believe, because the building's set, the well's set, everything else is set. So there being no other comments, making a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll make the motion to close the public hearing. Brent Pickett.
I'll second that. Stephanie Wasser.
All in favor, please raise your hand and say aye.
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 Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Donna, for your comments, and your neighbors. Please tell them thank you as well. As I said, they made it for a better review. And we will wait to schedule this on an agenda pending when we hear back from Peter, et cetera, on this. So thanks again, team. It's been a pleasure working with you. We'll see you again when we are ready with the resolution.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank
Thank you
you.
very much. Thank you all.
The next item on the agenda is another workshop item. This is Camp Victory Lake. This is a master plan for the entire site, which is located at 277 Crumelbo Road. Basically, this is the entire intersection, or the entire northwest intersection of Quaker Lane and Crumelbo. The applicants have submitted a change in where the sanctuary or the large church is located. This was discussed at our last meeting. This has now been moved north to accommodate a fire lane on both sides, or both, the north and the south of the building. And they've changed some of the parking spaces and also added more drains, I believe, for better stormwater management. But let me turn it over to the applicant's representatives, Mr. Rennie and Mr. Sander. Welcome back, guys.
Good evening.
Hey, everyone.
Thank you. So we're happy to be back. We, since the last meeting, there was some discussion about getting together with the fire department. So we went ahead and did that. And then also the architects did a little bit of work to the building footprint. They tightened it up a little bit. Exactly. So we went from, we were showing something about 61,000 square feet before, and now we're down to something just above 56,000 square feet. So that helps a little bit on the site plan. In the meeting with the Roosevelt Fire District, they were highly recommending that we provide an access lane for them on the south side of the building, which in turn, to do that, we were able to do that. But what it meant was sliding the building about 33.5 feet to the north. So that, as you could imagine, kind of messed up the parking lot that we had laid out there. But we were still able to make that work. But moving that building the 33.5 feet gave us that access lane to the south. And then losing some of the parking spaces that we did lose on the north side, we saw an opportunity on the south side to regain some of those parking spaces. And we think it's a perfect spot for those parking spaces that would be used by employees or handicap parking, clergy only, that sort of parking. And then shifting to the north side, we were able to regain the majority of the parking and then address some of the stormwater concerns that Pete had with the distance of the sheet flow. That was something that he and I discussed at the last time we were talking about this, that I was going to try to get some more stormwater practices out into the middle of the parking lot. And we can do a screen share in a moment and just show everybody where we have a sand filter out pretty much in the middle of the parking lot, which is nice for two reasons, because now we have at least half the distance to get the sheet flow into, but now we have a green fixture out in the middle of the parking lot, so it'll help to break up the sea of asphalt, so to speak. The other change that we made was on the front drop off. We're now showing the covering the covered area that would be over top of in front of the doors, a break in the bioretention area. So the walkway comes all the way from the front doors out to that main parking lot, the upper parking lot. And we changed that drop off to a one-way only. Before we had it as two-way. And we think that because we had to slide a little bit to the west, but making it one way is even better for the project, because now it'll direct all the traffic in one direction, keep everything a little bit safer. The one thing I wanted to comment on again was the parking that we added on the south side access. That is approximately 8 feet below Crumelbo Road. We know that the board needs to consider that because it would technically be in the front of the building. But what we'd like to propose is, with it being that low, and then we can add landscaping to that area, we think that you won't see that parking. It'll basically be hidden with being 8 feet below, and then with the building behind it. Nobody's going to really look from Crumelbo down at that parking. And then on the north side, we were able, like I had said, we were able to accommodate the building shift. The stormwater should work out very nicely there. And the only other item that we had discussed at the last meeting on that northern parking was that it's past the outside corner, outside edge of the building. And that's something else that the board would have to consider allowing us to do that. But keeping it in that direction further to Quaker Lane keeps us further away from the lake. So we think that that's a benefit to us. And then there's also plenty of area along Quaker Lane for us to landscape as well. So we don't think it's going to have an overall negative effect on the project.
That was an excellent summation. I want to make sure that you're aware that when I went down to the weeds about the parking being in front of the building line, it's just because legally we need to put that into, how am I saying this? We need to put that into our resolution later on down the line. And this will allow me to bring up another issue now, because you're at a corner, you actually have 2 front yards.
Yes.
So by adding the parking into the south side of the building, that also will have to be relaxed by the planning board, because I believe I'll have Ms. Moss opine later on, but it was the question I posed initially was, well, there are other buildings on the site already that are closer to, Crum Elbow. So does that mean that they have to be behind the front line for just the sanctuary? Does it mean it's behind the front line for all buildings? So I believe that Tad has opined that it's just for that one building. But at any rate, I don't, again, like you just said, Mr. Rennie, if you're going to be looking at that parking, you have to kind of stand up and look down and over. You're not going to see it by a regular driver because of the grade changes there. So, but I don't think that's a big issue, like I said. And I'm going to go ahead, before the consultants even start, I'm just going to say, I think you're asking the board for reactions tonight to how the building now looks, the fact that it's smaller, it's been a little bit more detailed, and you also want to know whether the board and our consultants think it's a great idea to slide it the way you did. That's all you're really looking for tonight, right?
Correct.
That's right. Okay.
Yeah, just so we don't go ahead and do a whole lot of engineering and fine.
We don't want you to waste their money, and I'm very excited about how this project is moving forward. I will just give a quick aside. Once a year, I update the town board on projects that are underway in Hyde Park, and this one, when I said I was going to include it, one of the board members, I won't say whom, said, "We'll really care about that." And then the same board member, when I presented, said, "Oh wow, I had no idea. This is great." So, because it's something, as I said, I know that the members of the conference have indicated that they would like to have some Hyde Park individuals participate or happy to participate, et cetera. So, when this is, I may not be here on this earth, but when it's finished, but at the same time, when it's done, it's a really exciting and innovative project. I like the idea that it's here in Hyde Park too. So at any rate, but it was favorably received by the entire town board once I explained and was able to screen share to show sort of the overall mass layout. So let me start with our consultants, and I guess I'm picking on Pete tonight. Mr. Sotero, do you want to go first?
Yeah, Michael, we don't really have anything at this point. As you had said, they're just Rich and his team are just looking for some feedback on the building shift. And as Rich pointed out in his cover letter, many of the engineering details and stuff will follow once they go back and do that work. So no, at this point, we don't have anything.
Thank you. Ms. Franson did issue a memo. Do you want to highlight any of that you issued out today, Bonnie?
Sure. So what I did is I did show the alternate layout, did kind of a comparison so the board members could see the prior submission and the sanctuary building compared to the April 2021 submission. It is a little smaller. The shape of the classroom area is different. So the building kind of extends slightly a little longer out toward the parking to the west. But I think importantly, it should be noted that the first floor, lower and upper elevations haven't changed. So this shift down to the south toward Crum Elbow hasn't made the building pop up or farther below grade. So height wise, it doesn't appear like we're looking at a big change in elevations. I just note the parking area on the south side doesn't really have a turnaround area. So sometimes when that happens, you can consider it perhaps that's where maybe all the handicaps parking goes, or maybe that's where clergy or reserved parking goes, or maybe put something in, to be able to turn around. But that was sort of my one reaction. And then I had some just general comments about the submission that was made about detailing what's in the mechanical enclosure, because that enclosure is coming closer to Crum Elbow Road as well. And details on the enclosure and what's in the enclosure would be useful. I do also touch upon the question, and it's really a zoning administrator question about the parking. There are pre-existing buildings, some of which are a little non-compliant because they themselves encroach into the front yard setback. But not only, permanent parking, but just to make sure we're also considering to what extent any of the temporary parking encroaches within a front yard and beyond the buildings. Is there a need for any kind of waiver from that? This is really, I think, a traffic question and maybe a Pete's group question, but those 14 or so, temporary spaces are kind of close to the entrance by the sanctuary. And, I don't know when they'll be utilized, but you want to just make sure that, especially with large events, that it doesn't become a queuing problem for people to get in because they're immediately trying to park into those spaces. And then I think, as per the workshops that we've been having, there's been a question as to how visible will this building be? And, is it time, and this is really a planning board question, if this is where the building's kind of settling in before you continue to advance it, would it make sense? Should there be some kind of balloon survey that just shows what the height will be from the planned elevation up the 45 feet of the sanctuary, and then also considering the cross that will be atop it? There were some questions with regard to the renderings as to what the material will be for the cross. Will it be shiny? Will it be matte? What color will it be? And that won't necessarily come through on, computerized renderings. So all of that kind of ties into what really is the visibility of this intersection. From what points will it be visible? And, does the planning board want to, request some kind of visual analysis with simulation of the height to get a sense of, okay, well, where are we going to be with this building and its massing and size and height at the corner of the intersection? So those are sort of my high level comments with regard to my memo.
Thank you. And that's, I'll ask all the board members tonight because Bonnie is making a distinction. I believe, Bonnie, we can look at a balloon test. And traditionally, when those are done, you try to look at it during leaf off, as we all know, season, so you can have a better idea. Obviously, we're entering into leaf on season. It's a gorgeous spring day today. So, but there are other ways to do visual impacts. And that would be to do a photo sim, which isn't that hard either. I think that's what you were sort of saying, Bonnie, was you could do a cross-section analysis. So think about that when I call on each of you to ask, because it is pretty tall. I mean, we don't have the specific dimensions. We only have sort of dimensions right now. And we don't know all the dimensions of the proposed cross up at the top, nor whether that would be lit or remain dark, at all times, et cetera. So, but we can get into that when we get into the details. So thank you, Ms. Franson. Ms. Moss, any comments?
I have a couple. I'd like you to re-look at possibly the water source for your fire suppression. I spoke with Don Westermeyer briefly about the project, and that was a concern of his. He wasn't sure whether or not you would need a tank and a pump in addition to the water source that's there. The other thing is to check with the building department to make sure that there aren't any open building permits anywhere on the property before you come to discuss the new project. Those are it.
Those are excellent points. And what that also means now, Mr. Renia, I believe, knows this, is that you can now start talking to Don Westermeyer, our building inspector. So that's actually a pretty big step along the way, and Tad did the paving for that. So thank you, Tad. I believe we did discuss at one point the idea of fire suppression and the need for a tank. If memory serves, Rich said they might be outside, it might be inside, and we said if it's outside, it has to be labeled. But they can look at that and discuss that with Don, because that may be just a building issue. And also, that I believe might be a hint that there might be an open building permit. I'm not sure what that would be, but that's a hint. So I would advise you talk to Mr. Westermeyer as soon as possible. Ms. Polidoro, any comments?
Not at this time.
Okay, then let's pick on someone new right now. How about Vice Chair Dexter to start us off with comments from the board?
I like how, I do like the progression of this. I'm excited also. I like how the comments that we've taken and also, reaching out to the fire department, doing all these things at this point in time and being able to just push things around on a piece of paper it's so much better to do it at this point. So as we're talking about visual analysis, so I do know when we first started looking at this, they had done a little, I believe, Rich, you had shown kind of something, how it was nestled in next to the road. I kind of remember seeing that you had done kind of a visual. It's not sitting up on top, it's down below the grade of the road. Or Peter did that, right?
If you want, I can actually share my screen and bring it up.
Oh, that'd be great.
Yep.
Sure.
All right, 1 second.
And is that it? No. Yeah.
So this would be if you're coming along, not Crum Elbow, but North Quaker, this is coming south. And so you'd see it in the parking area, which would be over here. So it's coming this way.
Oh, right.
Yep.
Okay.
And this is with it slid down the 33 feet.
Okay, and as you can see, as you go south towards the intersection, the height of the building the road goes up and the building stays down.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So again, as I'm kind of thinking of the area, I'm like, well, right next door is like a 3 or 4 story, very large concrete building. So it's not like this is going to be like sticking out like a sore thumb, like, oh my God, look at there's a really big building here. Because then you just look a little north and you say, oh, there's another really big building. So I'm not that concerned with how it fits with the area, because I do believe it's going to be a beautiful building. I guess things like distractions, like if they did have like something that was lit at the top, like if the cross or something was shiny and could somehow blind, autos, I would be concerned about that. So, maybe not shiny and maybe not, but yeah, I don't think we have to jump through hoops to try and see, it's going to be a large building. It's going to be right at the intersection. But given the character of that area, it's going to only be an improvement.
Just as a reminder, there's also on the other side of the lake, there is a 3-story residential care facility. So as Ann said, there is precedent to have taller buildings in this area. And in addition, I just want to remind everybody who might be viewing from home too, this is shown with no landscaping. This is just shown as though it was a naked building that you would see as you drive up. The applicants there will be some additional, there'll be some existing vegetation that will remain right along the road. The applicants are also proposing extensive landscaping in where the hand is magically going as I speak. So, thank you, Peter. At any rate, and it's important to recall also last time that Mr. Oliver instead discussed or mentioned grouping the proposed landscaping so that it looks more natural, like 3s and 4s with some space in between, because we think that we'd actually like people to see the beauty of the building as proposed. And otherwise you have the marching soldiers that go up and down if you just plant them in a row. And Chris is pretty much an expert at correctly suggesting that's not how anything looks in nature. It creates that weird LA effect, which can look great in a more formal setting, but this is out in the rural area of town. So staggering that will look better as well. But I tend to agree with Ann, but that's just me. Anything else, Ann?
I guess the only other thing was that I just listening to Rich talk about how, moving things around and, oh, look, if we go one way, it actually is a better design. I think that kind of touches on some of the points that we were talking about before with the entire parking flow. And Bonnie's comments also about some of the dead end area, the no turnaround, making use of that space for handicapped or, other special parking is a great idea. So I think we just keep inching towards a better project.
That's well stated. Thank you. Mr. Oliver, comments?
I would have to agree with Ms. Dexter. You know, I'm okay with sliding the building a little bit, and I think the elevations seem to line up and make sense, and agree we're working in the right direction here. So thank you.
Thank you. And Ms. Wasser?
Yes. So first I wanted to, for the specific request of the board at hand, the building change in the footprint, I'm fine with it, and shifting it to 33 feet also. That's good. I'm glad there's an emergency lane now on the other side, so I think that was a good shift. Bonnie, I really appreciate your comments, and also just showing the two footprints next to each other was a nice quick way to see this wasn't a big deal. You know, when there's big changes, the visual really helps. So thank you for that. I do think that I would like to see some sort of visual analysis from the average grade up to the peak of the cross to have a bit. I don't know what that analysis should be. Don't mean to make people jump through hoops, but I would like to see figure out what kind of analysis would work there to give us an understanding of the finished product. And I do like the architecture.
Thank you, Stephanie. Those are very succinct. And by the way, I kept hoping that Bonnie would pull up her memo. It's very clever how you did that, Bonnie, to do the insert as part of your comments. I'm not sure a lot of boards are fortunate enough to be able to have someone who's talented enough to do that with your computer skills are excellent. So, and thank you, Stephanie, because I do think that I'm also not necessarily bothered by the visual impacts, but I think that if we're going to do a proper job as a planning board, we should have some sort of visual impact analysis. And maybe that is, instead of floating balloons during this time of the year, maybe it's better to have some sort of cross-section analysis. But what I may suggest we do is have Bonnie talk to Mr. Renia and Mr. Sander separately for them to come up with a protocol and then pass that by us. Because I'm really more concerned with the height of the cross. We don't know how tall that's going to be. And I think Ann said it correctly. If it gets to be lit, then it may be something that, particularly during the winter when it gets lit early, will be too much of a beacon for some people and distract them. And if it's too shiny, then it may cause glare or glint, something like that. So those are all excellent points from my colleagues as usual.
I
And Mr.
think
Pick,
recall too that even though there weren't elevations on the drawings yet, that from average grade up to the top of the cross, it was something like 130 feet. That was a number that I recall from the last time, which is 13 stories. I know it's average grade, and I know it's shielded by some of the topography, but I do think that's pretty significant. So that's why I say that. I think we need some kind of analysis.
I agree with you. Mr. Pickett?
Yes, I'm glad the discussion with the fire department worked out, and that kind of takes care of our fire access concerns. As you're coming down Crum Elbow and looking at the facility, the mechanicals are now tucked away into that corner a little bit more. And that's an elevated view as you'd be looking down from near the corner onto them. So I wanted to have that taken into consideration in the design and how you try and minimize the view. You've got a real nice looking building there, and anything you can do to hide or minimize the mechanicals to me would be good. Bonnie, I like the idea of getting rid of the turnaround and using it for the alternate parkings. Also, you made a comment in there about making sure all the parking areas are well defined, and I think that's probably pretty important during large events. Then when it comes to elevations, I think I'd originally mentioned a balloon test. I'd be willing to look at other things. And my ideas on the balloon test was not to go with the height of the cross. It was just to go with the height of the building. If you were to run it to the height of the cross, that may give us kind of a bigger view or impression of what's really happening versus a cross. So we'll need to know the details on the cross and style and whatever, but I think if we were to do a balloon test, we'd want to just do it to the height of the buildings. And I'm okay with the footprint movement of the building. So those are my comments.
Thank you. Because we haven't done this in a while, I want to point out that when we had a proposed batting practice area, golf practice area, driving range, there we are. When we had them do the balloon test, we had them do basically a balloon that would show the height of the net that would be on poles that would catch golf balls, as well as we had them show an additional balloon at the top height of the pole where lights, et cetera, were mounted. So there's a way, in other words, to do both the top of the building and the top of the cross, so you would have a good idea of both. That depends on whether we're down 2 members tonight, but I definitely have heard at least 3 of us say that we think some sort of visual impact analysis should be considered. And if that's acceptable to my colleagues, I really would like for Bonnie to maybe discuss that with Rich and Peter. Would that be okay for everybody?
Yeah.
Thank you. Bonnie, are you okay with that too? Sorry, I'm just assigning you work.
No, I'm fine with that. And I think I will talk to Peter and Rich, kind of come up with maybe a protocol and then share that with the board to sign off on.
That's what I'm thinking. That's the most efficient way to do it. So, and again, I want to point out, I share Ann's comment that there are other tall buildings here. They're just not quite so on this corner, but even then we all know that there's substantial grade changes there. So it's not going to be like it's in your face or anything. But I also, again, just because Ann and I have been here longer than our colleagues, when the St. James Antiochian Church on Route 9G was approved, and as a reminder there, that was a former monuments building that was also huge, an old ugly hulk. But when that was approved and built, people were coming up to both Ann and I know going, how'd you let that huge building in? It's like, well, it replaced a huge building. It was conformant with the code. And we didn't think it doesn't seem to disturb anybody now. It just was a shocker for them. So, and I don't believe that when that was proposed, that we did a lot of visual analysis because, again, we knew it was replacing a huge building in and of itself, and this was much more attractive. But I don't ever like thinking that our residents would suspect that we somehow didn't do all the work that we should. So as long as you guys can meet, that's all that really matters to me. I also will concur that I'm happy with the shape of the building, happy with the reduction of the building, happy with the sliding at 33 feet, happy with everything. I believe that Tad did opine that we would need to relax the parking standard for the new parking that's along the south side. But I mean, what a great reason to do it, to allow, to pick back up some of the parking that you lost now from the north side, and also to allow a fire access lane on the south side. I mean, that makes perfect sense to me. The only thing I want the board to consider is that under site plan, we are required to have not just landscaping within parking areas, but there's also supposed to be a tree in every, I think it's, Tad can remind me, but I think it's 15% of the parking. If there's over 17 spaces, there's supposed to be a number of landscape beds. Under our code, every landscape bed is also required to have a tree in it. I don't believe that any landscaping along those lines is proposed for the parking. So I just want the board to remember that and to think about it as we move forward, because again, being the Southerner, it's gonna be a lot of hot cars during the summer to come out into if you've been to an event there. But more importantly, there's not a lot of room to add more parking. As Mr. Rinia said, if they try to expand it, they're gonna go closer and closer to the lake, which is something we don't want to see happen. And we want to see as tight a parking as possible and around the sanctuary, because that's not going to be the main, not just gathering place, not just place for services, but that's where the activities are. If you remember, as Ms. Lambert reminded us at the last meeting, right now you have a lot of different activities during their main get-togethers, and they're under tents and they're here and they're there. And the sanctuary will be a place where a lot of those, almost all of them, can actually be conducted and performed under one roof. So you're really just taking a lot of different activities and centralizing them into one area. So, so in other words, parking will still be an important component to this. And as a reminder, they're also still proposing a lot of bus service here as well. So it may be that you don't see the parking completely filled except at various times. that's really all I have. So Rich and Peter, did that tell you what you want to know?
Yes.
Yeah, that's perfect.
It's great feedback. I thank everybody.
I
Well-
did have one question. I believe this might be for Tad, is the getting a variance for the building height, how best to proceed. Now that we kind of nailed down our location of the buildings, we can do the grading and get an actual assessment of what sort of variance we'll be needing. So is this something just me and Tad should work offline, or?
Tad?
There we go. We can work offline. The variance process currently will probably take, I don't know, 3 months at a minimum.
Before any variance is granted, the planning board must conclude seeker.
Mhm.
Yeah. But you might not
And-
want to start it yet until you're closer.
If you're going to look at doing some kind of a balloon test or other height analysis, impact analysis, it would be good to have the application into the zoning board so that they could also weigh in on it and use the same information.
Excellent
This
idea.
is exactly what I wanted to get.
That's a good point.
Because they'll be looking, I would imagine, at the same information that we would in order to grant the variance.
Yep.
Anything else, Peter or Rich?
No.
Okay, then you got your sort of marching orders here.
Awesome.
You heard that people like it. And so, oh, sorry. When people stop sharing screens, sometimes it's a little vertiginous for me as everybody pops up. Sorry.
Oh, sorry about that.
No, I just wasn't expecting it. So at any rate, so we'll wait to hear back from you guys. I know there were some other details you were going to sort of polish out. I'll call it the traffic impact study or traffic impact analysis by showing us some actual transportation engineers, numbers along with what's projected by the owners of the site, and just a few other things. And then we can, because that's really what we're waiting for, I think, that and the visual impact analysis to sort of get a better handle on seeker. And I know that once we conclude seeker, that's going to be better for you, for your variances, et cetera. And it means we can really move forward even further on this. So if there's nothing else tonight, then thank you, gentlemen, for showing up tonight. It's a pleasure to work with you as always. And I look forward to seeing you again and working together more on this.
Awesome.
Great.
Thank you very much, everyone. Always a pleasure working with your guys' board.
Thank you. Mr. Honore, I didn't give you a chance to speak. Was there anything you wanted to add? You or Ms. Lambert?
No, I think everything was covered. We're looking forward to moving ahead expeditiously with this project. We think it's going to be an enrichment for the community. So thank you for your time and consideration.
I will agree with you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. We'll see you soon.
Thanks, everyone.
Good
Have a
night.
nice night.
Good night.
Good night.
The next item on the agenda is Norrie Park Estates Lot 1 Plat Amendment. As a reminder, we workshopped this and held and closed a public hearing. We kept it open for 7 days to hear additional comments. We received none. Basically, having visited the site 2 days ago, the stormwater drain, or the stormwater trench, I'm sorry, has been cleaned out. We also have Mr. Sotero's comments on that. The correct size rock has been installed. There's been some more grading in the back lawn area. I guess that's probably to the potential home buyer's request. But I saw definite improvements along the way. And I commented to Tad today that the driveway hasn't been changed yet. And she pointed out to me correctly that they can't do that till you sign this. I said, oh yeah, that's right. The equipment's all there. I've seen Mr. Macho's equipment ready to go. It's kind of roughed out. So it looks like everything is done smoothly. We have a resolution prepared tonight with conditions to it. And just so you know, I also updated today in speaking with Ms. Polidoro. The easement did arrive from Mr. Stenger, I believe, and she's reviewing it now. So things are underway to try to expedite this as much as possible. Anyone have any questions or comments from the board, consultants? Okay, let's see if we can take care of this now and correct a wrong. I believe Ms. Dex will be introducing this. Yep, thank you, Ann.
Yep, resolution granting conditional plat approval for Norrie Park, map amendment for Lot 1, resolution number 2021-17. Whereas, now therefore be it resolved that the planning board hereby, 1, classifies the project as a type 2 action under seeker, and 2, accepts sketch and classifies the subdivision as a minor subdivision pursuant to section 96-12B2 of the subdivision law. Be it further resolved that the planning board hereby conditionally approves the subdivision plat and authorizes the chairperson or his authorized designee to sign the subdivision plat after compliance with the following conditions. 1, payment of all fees in escrow. 2, Department of Behavioral and Community Health permission to file. 3, approval by the attorney to the planning board and town attorney of a revised drainage easement to the town of Hyde Park extending 20 feet from Enderkill Drive, along with an undertaking from the applicant's attorney to record such easement together with the filing of the subdivision plat. 4, revision of the subdivision plat to depict the drainage easement extending 20 feet from the road with meets and bounds to the approval of the town stormwater officer and town engineer. Be it further resolved that prior to the zoning administrator authorizing issuance of a certificate of occupancy for the single family home on the property, the applicant shall provide the following. 1, proof of recordation of the approved drainage easement. 2, installation of the driveway in the new location, subject to approval of the highway superintendent and town engineer. 3, submission of a PDF of the filed approved subdivision plat. And 4, clean out of the drainage ditch and installation of 4-inch stone to satisfaction of the stormwater management officer and town engineer. Be it further resolved that the applicant is responsible for obtaining any and all necessary permits for the work shown on the subdivision plat, including but not limited to a driveway permit, and for notifying the highway department at least 48 hours in advance of any road opening work.
I'll second the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Pickett. Any further discussion?
Yep.
All in favor, please raise your hand and say aye.
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 Motion carries unanimously. Congratulations to Mr. Sikosa and Mr. Macho. Thank you for working this out along the way. And it appears as though the last condition has probably been met, but I'm going to wait and let Ms. Moss and Mr. Sotero weigh in on that. But as I said, when I visited the site, it looked pretty good. Mr. Sikosa, any comments before we say goodbye, or Mr. Macho?
Just want to say thank you, guys.
Thank you. Pleasure to see you guys, and good luck with finishing the work out there.
Thank you.
Thank you. The last item on the agenda, the town board has proposed local law E of 2021. This would enact a 6-month moratorium on rural event venue applications. It was referred to us, so we need to comment on it. I think you all saw the letter, saw it when I wrote. And I want to thank Ms. Weiser, who's not present tonight, but for picking up that I somehow left off the word month in the very first sentence of the recommendation letter. I read it 3 times. I guess I kept putting that word in there over and over again on my own, like a ghost or something in the machine. So at any rate, any comments from my colleagues on this?
This is why we have other eyes. You can't help it.
Oh, indeed. So, and it's such a short letter. I thought, oh, this will be easy. Because I discussed this with Tad, and there are some ambiguities that even I just hadn't thought about them yet, but there are some ambiguities. So this is something that we, of course, do want to see changed. And as I said, we're happy to help them change it in any way we can. So I believe, making a motion to authorize me to send this to the town board.
Yes, to authorize the chairman to send a comment letter to the town board regarding proposed local law E of 2021, a 6-month moratorium on rural event venue applications.
I'll second that, Chris Oliver.
Thank you. All in favor, please raise your hand and say aye.
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 Motion carried unanimously as always. And any other comments from anybody? Let's just go ahead and say it. Happy Cinco de Mayo to all who are celebrating.
Olay!
Ay,
Bunny's heritage is partly from Mexico, so she can actually do that willingly and
Really
legitimately.
well.
See.
Yes. So I hope everyone clinks a glass tonight before you go to bed, if that's what you want to do to help celebrate. Otherwise, make it a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion, Chris Oliver.
Second, Stephanie Wasser.
Thank you. All in favor, please raise your hand and say aye. Or
Aye.
should I say CC?
CC.
See.
See, and hasta la vista. Thank you, Councilman Krupnik and the town board for, as always, furnishing the resources to televise this meeting. We'll see you in 2 weeks.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
See
Thank
you.
you.
Good
Good
night.
night.
Good night.
Night.
Good night.
Buenas noches.
Buenos nachos.
Muchos nachos.
Hasty Petunia. Good night.
Night.